Hey, what's going on, people? Welcome to an episode of Training Well Done. This one, I'm actually recording a video in my car. I did a car episode a fairly long time ago, and I actually liked it. The audio quality wasn't great, but I was able to do it in the moment of having something to say. And I want to get to recording episodes more often. Part of the issue is whenever I am actually thinking about something I really want to share, I'm usually in commute and I don't really have it there when I'm on the mic, when everything's normal sounding. So I have to work on that, and with some restructuring I've done, a little bit more prioritizing of getting these recordings up. Today I have something I want to talk about in regards to being able to embrace suffering. I'm on my way back to the gym from a cross-country meet. A group of kids, they did really well, and most of them did really well. One of them did not do so well. It was my first time seeing most of them race, so that was really fun. But before I get there, it's a podcast. I gotta drop some stuff for y'all. So a lot of you, haven't dropped anything in a while. So some new happenings around GHP. First of all, new ebook. I want you to go and download that. Or, we can catch a fade and, you can get the fair one real quick. But go on the website, www.ghperformance.com. Go under the resources tab. And I want you to go get our Strength Training for Young Runners ebook. I just released it. I've been working on it for a while. It is for runners who have never really included strength training into their overall training. Sorry, ambulance going to Sewickley Hospital. It's for runners who've never really incorporated strength training into their training, and so this is a base level way to be able to do that. Exercise, these are things that can be done at home. We're not talking about crazy 400-pound deadlifts or anything like that, but things that are friendly for 8th grade runners who they did really well in 7th grade, and they're having a really good 8th grade year, and they want to be able to capitalize on that. Or maybe you're in 10th grade, or your son or daughter's in 10th grade, and they need to be able to get their body a little stronger so that they're less susceptible to injuries. So go download that. It is, it's a lot of the stuff that we do in the gym currently. So it's not like I just made up this thing that we don't do. It's based on the stuff that we do. So go check that out. We are in a new location. If you don't know, we're in Point Breeze, 6901 Lynn Way, right next to Westinghouse Park. So we have 3,000 square feet. If you're familiar with our old gym in Wilkinsburg, we're 4 times the size of that. So, we're putting in work. So come check us out. And that's all I want to plug in right now. So suffering. When we are doing something hard, something that we really care about, I think that people forget that hard things require some suffering, and that suffering is necessary. I was talking to a parent, and it was good to see that parents of this generation also agree and notice that, because I don't want to be one of these people that's beating the bandwagon of, oh, kids are so soft, but there is some level of a lack of resiliency that exists, and I don't think it's necessarily like kids don't want to be resilient, in so much as sometimes I think a lot of youth are sheltered from situations that would cause them to be resilient in a very meaningful way. Siri's talking. In a very meaningful way. And so when we're, let's say, let's keep it in the context of sport. Competing in a sport is hard. For the most part, I don't know too many people who say that, training for cross country, or training for triathlons, or training for football, or training for basketball is like easier, or just like, they might be really good, and so competing may be easy at times, but when you get to an appropriate competitive level, it's now hard, right? Training to get better, part of your body's adaptation process is that you stress it to the point where it wants to break, And you don't break it though, but you stress it to where you start to, you're bending it, and then you release the stress, and then your body adapts. So, it's like a soft metal beam, like aluminum, whatever. You're bending it, you want to break it, but you don't break it. Well, your body then adapts to be able to withstand that same amount of force, so that another time when you put the same amount of force on it, it actually won't bend so much. It'll bend less. And so then it'll require more stress to actually do that. But the process of doing this is hard. And when you're racing, competing, like this Sunday, like a few days ago, I'm still gleaming about this. I did my first triathlon. I did an adventurous sprint triathlon. It was kayak, 2 miles. They said 2 miles on the registration. My watch said it was 2.5 miles. It is to bike 12.5 miles and run 3 miles. It took me just shy of 2 hours to do it. I was kayaking for 40 minutes, bruh. I was kayaking for 40 minutes. I biked at 17.5 miles per hour. And then I ran like a 750, split 5K. But, I didn't even run that until I was an hour and a half in. The whole thing was suffering. Now, psychologically, I'm at a point now where, to an extent, I can enjoy suffering in certain contexts. There's certain contexts that I don't enjoy suffering, but they're usually emotional, personal, and have nothing to do with training. There are things that most people do not enjoy. But physically suffering, knowing I can enjoy it. But this is also in the context of sport, where the other end of pain is success. There are other things like, torture, where the other end of torture may not be success, so that's different. I mean, suffering is still suffering, but that's different. When you're in sport, this is a voluntary thing that you've decided to take upon yourself to suffer, to do, to make you better, right? Now, people who undergo those sorts of things, they also tend to come out the other side very resilient, although, the trauma associated with that can lead to a lot of other things, but we're not here to talk about that. Kayaking for 40 minutes was suffering. I'm not gonna hold you. I love kayaking. That's why I did it. I like kayaking. But I had never kayaked for more than like 5 minutes. When I say never kayaked for more than 5 minutes, let me clarify. I had never just rowed constantly for 5 minutes. I will row for a few minutes, and then I'm just gonna lounge around. Bro, I rowed for 40 minutes. My arms were so sore. I got a massage the next day, and I had knots in my forearms. I never had a knot in my forearm from ever that I know of. Not to say that I maybe never have, and I just never just happened to get a massage at the time, but bruh, my arms were sore, my hands were hurting, and I wanted to stop. Being on the bike, I'm pushing. The transitions, I'm huffing and puffing the whole time. It was fun in the sense it was competing, but it was hard. It was very hard, and it was suffering. Today I'm at the race, watching these kids run, and they're suffering through this. They ran personal best, and one was, she was dog tired at the end. The other ones were gleaming, gloating around. Another one was very unhappy to see me, from maybe a little bit of embarrassment. Did not go so well. But in tracking the training for all of these athletes, even thinking about suffering, some of them I have put through situations where they have suffered through their workouts. We're running up a half-mile hill constantly for an hour. It's suffering, right? It's not fun. You find a way as you get into athletics more and more, where you psychologically just get to that point where you associate that suffering with progress, to the point where you even start to enjoy it. But it takes a while to get somebody into that place. Especially if you're someone who's very pain averse, right? But you have to be able to embrace this pain. Life is painful. Business is painful. I work a lot. I have the weight of a lot of decisions and responsibilities. I have a staff who I have to make sure they're doing things a certain way, because if they mess up, no one's going to get mad at them. They're going to get mad at me. It's just the flip side of that is, if they do a great job, I still get credit for that, you know, even when they're the ones who I have to give all that credit to and do all the praise, and, you know, people will praise about them to me, which feels nice, but it's still its own way of getting credit. But at the same point, when I've had coaches who have been not stellar, or even coaches who are usually good, but they've had not stellar moments, and I have to hear about it, no one's fussing at them about it. I don't think a single one of my coaches have ever gotten fussed at by a client about something they didn't do so great, but I have, you know. So that's weight, it's stress, it's its own type of suffering, right? So in life, we have to be able to do that. You know, people die in our life. We have somebody you know is going to die, because you are, right? And so there's a slew of people you're going to lose. That is a suffering that we have to deal with. People are just going to not like us for no reason. Matter of fact, me and one of the parents were actually talking. I think, and this is a hot take, some level of bullying is necessary. Getting beat up in the bathroom and thrown in trash cans and, you know, getting slammed in lockers, not that kind of stuff. I don't think in most cases, for most people, that's necessary. But people not liking you and not being nice to you just because they don't like the color of your hair, I think is necessary for resilience. You have to learn to be able to, like, have this level of self-confidence within yourself and ability to just be focused on, you know, your inner peace and world, and being less swayed by the opinions of others, that I think can only come from the experience of people making you suffer, in the sense of you're in 5th grade and somebody's picking on you because your hair is short, or your hair is curly, or your hair is straight, or you don't have enough muscles, or you talk funny. You know, people picking on you over these things that you may or may not be able to control, or whether you can control it or not, this is how you are. You know, you're into Star Wars and, you know, they're not, right? So they want to, you know, make you a victim. Being able to get over that builds resilience, but blocking that away then can lead, for when you're 17 years old or you're 27 years old and something catastrophic happens, you do not have the mental ability emotional stability to be able to handle it. And people can give you all the mental, you know, focus tools and all the ways to handle stress, but you literally none of that stuff matters if you don't know what it feels like to be terribly stressed. And yeah, stress and problems and suffering to some extent are relative, but there are some things that become very close to being objectively able to rank. And, you know, being able to handle certain stresses helps build you up to be able to deal with bigger things. Let's just say that. When it comes to training, and I want to come back to training, even when it comes to running, right? Long distance running, you getting your long, slow miles. That is not hard on you, right? And I was listening to something today about this instant gratification culture. And the guy was talking about how even a lot of the popular things that we have out right now have Insta in the name. Instagram, instant messenger, you know, instant oats, which I've eaten. All of these things that revolve around our lives are instant. And it's so much to the point where it's even part of the name of these things, right? And so we have to, when we look at like that and getting even long distance miles and getting your easy runs and your just base mileage, right? A lot of kids, they run too fast, too much. And there's an art of suffering. I did a 10-mile run this morning. It was at like 9:30 pace. It was moderately enjoyable, but it was suffering because I really like to do workouts. But my training has also been very stagnant over the years because all I do are workouts, and I have not done a lot of like easy runs for just base mileage and base aerobic fitness. I don't really do a lot of that. And because it's like suffering for me, I don't want to do that. Like, bro, I don't want to just go for an easy 4 miles or an easy 7 miles when I could do like repeat miles and hill sprints and all that, which are way more interesting to me, way more enjoyable. This 10-mile run this morning was like, it wasn't the worst thing I ever did, don't get me wrong, but it ended up being fun because I know I need it and I have a new training desire, and I know that's part of it to get me there. But it's not as fun as doing a faster workout or a faster tempo. And going that slow is its own form of suffering. But avoiding that is what's leading me to be stagnant, right? On the flip side, when we're doing hard speed workouts, especially intervals are inherently suffering. I like to tell people, when you are doing like interval workouts, intervals never get easier. They never get easier. And when the moment an interval workout is easy, it's not stressful enough to actually make you better anymore. So your interval workouts always need to be faster or with less reps, or you have to do more. Not all three at the same time. You either make them faster, you either do more reps, or you either cut your rest down, and then boom, you're right back into suffering, right? So those type of workouts require you to be in pain. And I want to, the shining message of this, for you listening, is that you have to be able to endure suffering to get something you want. You know, even when it comes to having good relationships with close people, especially when it comes to intimacy, involves some level of being able to deal with the ugly, as me and my friend were talking the other day, dealing with the ugly of yourself. And, even for me, there's certain aspects, this applies for most people, I believe. I don't want to get too in the weeds with this, but there are certain aspects that we see in ourselves based on the stimulus that we're around. We see a certain part of ourselves in hard training. We see a certain part of ourselves when we're hanging with our best friends. We see parts of ourselves when we are enduring like an academic challenge, and we see different parts of ourselves when we are in, romantic moments, for better or for worse. And we have to be able to endure the suffering of these different things, right? Because if we don't do those days of studying, or we don't endure the stress of organizing studying, because you can be the person that crams all night before a test, which is suffering, or you can be the person who is disciplined and doesn't go and do these and does this dedicated time to study, which is another type of suffering, right? But if you just don't study, you're not suffering, but then you don't do good, especially if you're doing something that's actually challenging. And then if you don't do good, it's this other type of suffering, so you're still going to suffer. You're going to suffer from not doing good, you're going to suffer from cramming, or you're going to suffer from discipline. So when it comes to you running, you're going to suffer from either not performing very well because you're not doing enough speed work, or you're going to suffer from not doing well because you're not doing enough easy running. Or you're going to suffer from the boredom that can come from doing a lot of easy running, or the feeling that you're not getting better because you're not pushing, or you're going to suffer from the actual pain and agony of doing hard speed workouts, right? You're going to suffer from lifting weights. You're going to suffer from the embarrassment of doing something you don't know how to do. Let's say you're doing yoga for the first time. You have to suffer. If you can't suffer, you can't win. All right? That is actually going to be the title of this. If you can't suffer, you can't win. All right? So you have to be able to endure the pain of things to be able to enjoy the glory of it. All right? Because, yeah, you can just go on your natural talent and not suffer, but then you don't get what you want. And, your natural talent's only going to get you so far. All right? So I am engaging with... oh my gosh, traffic here. But that was my message for today. So, let me know what you think. Tell me in the comments what you are suffering with and what are you using to make yourself better, okay? We'll talk to you soon on the next episode. Sayonara.